What's up guys, welcome back to another video, and we're finally coming back to What If Ash Woke Up on Time. I know it's been a while, but I hope you guys enjoyed this part. I had a lot of fun writing it, so remember to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, and let's get on with the video. After getting some new threads, they arrive in Snowpoint City, where they meet up with Zoe and Candace. Ash helps out with one of Candace's classes before getting into the gym battle. Their first battle remains largely the same, but instead of defeating Sneasel with a rock climb, Tortwig uses a combo of Energy Ball and Razor Leaf. When Medicham comes out, Ash decides to swap out to Stunky. While it does have the type disadvantage, Stunky proves to be quite the battler as it takes out the Medicham with a Play Rough. Candace's third Pokemon is Snover, and using Iron Tail, Stunky is able to deflect Snover's Razor Leaves and Bullet Seeds. The Stunk covers the area in smog, and while using it as cover, Stunky bombards it with Iron Tails and Gunk Shots. Using this tactic, Stunky defeats the little snowman, and Candace is forced to bring out her final Pokemon, Abomasnow. Ash tries to keep using the same tactic, however it quickly falls apart when the Yeti uses Blizzard to dispel the smog. A small piece of Stunky's leg freezes, causing it to lose some speed, allowing for Abomasnow to eventually take it out via Woodhammer. However, this is when they learn that Stunky's ability is Aftermath, dealing some damage to Abomasnow. Ash then sends back in Turtwig, who eventually meets the same fate as his friend. Monferno is Ash's third Pokemon, who with the added power, the monkey defeats it a lot quicker than in canon. We then get to the battle between Paul and Brandon, and after getting absolutely destroyed by the Frontier Brain, Ash and Paul agree to have a battle in 10 days, before getting word that someone is at the Snowpoint Temple. The Regigigas episode does end a little differently, with Brock catching it using the heavy ball he got back in Johto. Unfortunately, he won't be keeping it, as Brock and everybody else decided that he'd be better off in Brandon's hands. Not too long after, Ash and Paul meet up at Lake Acuity, where their first 6-on-6 battle begins. Reggie even goes through the trouble of getting an official referee to judge the match. Ash first sends out Swampert, but quickly recalls it when Torterra comes out, so instead sends out his own Turtwig. Thanks to its small stature and speed, it's able to dodge most of Torterra's attacks, and land a few Razor Leaves. After Turtwig gets hit a few times, Ash decides to recall it and send out Stunky. Stunky's able to land a few Gunk Shots and Iron Tails before Paul decides to recall it and swap out for Weavile, which proves to be a mistake as Stunky's Play Rough makes quick work of the Weavile. Paul's third Pokemon is Electabuzz, and Ash quickly recalls Stunky for Turtwig. This plays out somewhat like normal, with Electabuzz setting up Light Screen before Paul substitutes it with Honchkrow. It then goes on to defeat Turtwig, and when Ash sends in Stunky, Paul recalls Honchkrow and sends out Magmortar. This fight is quite brutal as Stunky takes more damage than it deals, but Stunky's not willing to give up as it keeps getting back up no matter how much damage Magmortar deals to it. Eventually they clash with the Fire Punch and Iron Tail, and while it does seem that they're even for a split second, once the Flame Punch overcomes the Iron Tail and actually hits Stunky, its ability gets activated. Aftermath then proceeds to take out Magmortar as well. Up next is Paul's Aggron versus Ash's Swampert. However, Paul quickly switches out to Honchkrow when he sees Swampert come out. Despite Honchkrow hurting Swampert, it ultimately gets defeated by an Ice Punch and Hydro Pump. Following this, Paul sends in his Torterra, and while Ash wants to swap out Swampert, the Mudfish wants to keep fighting. During this fight, Swampert actually listens to Ash when it's told to dodge the Frenzy Plant by aiming its Hydro Pump at the ground and rocketing into the sky. With Swampert somewhat listening to Ash now, they're able to land a few more hits than they would have before. It all comes to an end when Torterra begins to use Frenzy Plant. Swampert's able to land an Ice Punch seconds before Frenzy Plant comes out, effectively knocking each other out with their attacks. Paul's second to last Pokemon is Aggron, to which Ash sends out his Gibble, who surprisingly does well, using Dig and Rock Smash to deal quite a bit of damage. However, it's still lacking the power needed, meaning it gets knocked out. Ash's second to last Pokemon is his Charizard. The Palatown native gets a little cocky, thinking that this will be an easy fight. However, Ash is quickly proven wrong when Aggron uses Metal Sound, which stops every one of Charizard's moves. Much like anyone who would hear that horrible scraping sound, Charizard can't really stand the sound of it. While she is able to sometimes push through the pain and land very few attacks, it's not enough. Because of Metal Sound, this causes Meteor Beam to deal even more damage than normal, and is enough to ultimately defeat Charizard. This means Ash is down to his final Pokemon, Monferno. Paul knows he has put himself in a massive disadvantage, but regardless keeps out Aggron. The first thing Aggron does is use Metal Sound. Unfortunately for their Steel Rock type, it can't really hold out for much longer, as one Mach Punch from Monferno is enough to bring it to its knees. It throws out one final Sand Tomb, which does hurt Monferno, but it's eventually able to escape and defeat it with a Mach Punch. This leaves Paul with his only Pokemon left, which is his infamous Electabuzz. And the first move it does is set up Rain Dance. Paul comments that he taught Electabuzz this move specifically to deal with Charizard, but it'll work great with Monferno as well. He then goes on to say it's not a great idea to have two Pokemon of the same type on his team. But of course, Ash would make that mistake. Ash grits his teeth before ordering a Mach Punch, and this attack does end up hitting. However, Paul doesn't seem all that worried as he orders a Thunder. No matter which way Monferno tries dodging, because of the rain, the attack lands no matter what. With not much of a choice, Ash keeps going for Mach Punch, only to be blocked by a Protect. Paul then goes for another Thunder, and this time Monferno tries to dodge it by using Dig. But because the floor is now all muddy, it really slows down Monferno. This means the attack hits, and Monferno falls face first into the mud. Just before the referee can call it in Paul's favor, Monferno's tail flame grows 3 sizes today. Though his eyes are closed, Monferno gets back on his feet. When he opens his eyes, they're glowing red, and as he lets out a primal scream, a pillar of fire erupts from where he's standing. He's letting off so much heat that it dispels the rain, and although it's a much more powerful version than they've ever seen, everybody knows that Monferno's blaze has been activated. The fire quickly transforms itself to an extra powerful flame wheel attack. Electabuzz tries using Protect, however, it breaks the barrier. After knocking the Electabuzz on its ass, Monferno goes on a rampage trying to attack everybody. And not just Electabuzz, but Ash, Paul, Reggie, Dawn, Brock, and even the referee. Ash, not wanting anyone to get hurt by Monferno, intercepts the flame wheel by grabbing a hold of Monferno, begging it not to hurt anybody. As Blaze begins to engulf Monferno and Ash, he begs it not to let himself be swallowed up by Blaze's power. Paul looks on in shock at what Ash is willing to endure to calm his Pokemon down. Monferno's blaze only seems to intensify until both Ash and Monferno are no longer visible. Suddenly, white streaks of light burst through the cocoon of fire until the entire thing explodes, revealing Monferno has become Infernape. Paul is rather shocked that Monferno was not only able to control Blaze, but was able to transform it into a new kind of energy that allowed him to evolve. Plus on top of that, it was Ash who helped them control it. Just before they can get back to the battle, a shocking announcement is made by the referee. Ash has been disqualified because his Pokemon directly threatened the lives of the observers. Therefore, Paul is declared the winner. This is an outcome that no one's really happy about. After all, both Pokemon are still able to continue battling. The referee says that his call is absolute. After all, Ash did break a big rule. This leaves Paul absolutely angry. Whether it be the way he won or something else, he just recalls his Pokemon and leaves. Reggie apologizes to Ash, saying that he'll talk to Paul about this before wishing the Cantonian luck at the league. Because of Ash and his Pokemon being so hurt, the gang spent some time at Lake Acuity, and Brock sees Uxie before leaving the lake. In the episode promoting healthy Tangrowth, Dawn's Tangela finally learns ancient power from the other Tangrowth that's there, allowing it to evolve. From here, we have a few filler episodes that aren't really important, so we can just move on to the Twin Leaf Festival arc. Most of this little mini arc isn't really important, so let's just skip straight to Ash's battle with Palmer. When Ash sees and hears about Rhyperior being an evolution of Rhydon, he makes the comment that he wants one. Palmer tells him he'll let him know how to get one if he beats him in this fight. Of course, Ash agrees to this, and the Pokemon of his choice is Gible. Unfortunately for Ash, none of his Pokemon are on Palmer's level, but that doesn't mean that Gible isn't going down without a fight. Using Dig, Gible's able to dodge most of Rhyperior's attacks for quite a while. That is until Rock Polish makes Rhyperior faster than Gible, who nearly gets taken out. Just as it seems that Gible is about to faint, he gains a second wind by forcing himself to evolve. With this new evolution, Gabite's able to hold his own a lot better. Despite Gabite having received a big power boost, Rhyperior can still withstand most of Gabite's attacks. Dig and Rock Smash are the only real moves that seem to deal any damage, as Draco Meteor still doesn't work properly, and Dragon Pulse isn't as effective against it. While Gabite's underground, Rhyperior is setting up even more Rock Polishes, so when Gabite pops out, Rhyperior is fast enough to dodge and retaliate, and ultimately Gabite falls when hit with a Mega Horn. After the fight, Palmer decides to tell Ash how to get a Rhyperior, since he put up such a good fight. He tells Ash that he needs a Rhydon to hold the Protector while trading it. If he remembers correctly, there is a stall that is selling one, so alongside Don and Barry, he goes to look for it, and eventually he does find the stall. However, the man running the booth says that he's not selling it, but he's willing to trade for another item. While looking through his bag, the Ice Stone and Metal Coat fall out. The man says that he's willing to trade both of those for the Protector. Ash does have to think about it for a bit, as both of the items were gifts, but ultimately he accepts the trade. Shortly afterwards, they hear a few vendors making a ruckus. Barreling towards them is a scared looking Togepi being chased by an angry mob. But before they can react, Togepi leaps into Ash's arms. She buries her face into Ash's chest as the mob begins to rapidly ask questions like if this is his Pokemon, did he send it to steal for him, and how long have they been doing this? At first, Ash isn't able to get a word in, but he's able to clear up the misconception that this isn't his Pokemon. However, Togepi is able to use their cute looks and personality to win Ash and Dawn over and have them talk the mob out of chasing it. Once the mob disperses, Togepi thanks Ash before she just walks off. Mere minutes later, Togepi finds itself being chased by some mean old Pokemon and uses Ash as an scapegoat once again. Thinking that Togepi seems to really like him, Ash offers her a spot on his roster. Togepi really doesn't like the idea of being captured, that is until she remembers all the countless war crimes that she has committed in Sinnoh. And since she is in need of a fresh start, Togepi allows herself to be caught. Sometime after, Palmer informs Ash about the gym in Sunnyshore City, and of course Ash says that he'll go to challenge the gym. Barry decides to tag along with the group one more time as he plans to challenge that gym as well. But first he wants to challenge a gym that's on the way. He'll eventually have to go off on his own since it's not a direct path to both gyms. And our trio really don't have a problem with Barry tagging along, and they'll set off once the festival is over. Later, while they're on their way, Dawn notices that Vespiquen wants to learn X-Scissor. However, Dawn isn't so sure on how to go about teaching Vespiquen the move. That is until Ash remembers that he does know one Pokemon that could possibly teach Vespiquen the move. So he calls up Tracy and gets his Scyther back, who isn't really all that excited to be with Ash again. However, his mood seems to quickly change as he seems to have developed a crush on Vespiquen, so he will eagerly help her try to learn X-Scissor. After a few days, they arrive at a village holding a Johto festival, in which they meet Lyra and Corey. Dawn enters the festival and wins, earning her a Pokemon egg. Later that day, Dawn's egg hatches into a Natu, who really enjoys sitting under Dawn's hat and taking naps. Lyra and Corey temporarily join the group, but unfortunately have to leave just before we can move on to the events of the 12th movie. The beginning of the movie remains the same up until the Creation Trio starts to fight Arceus. Just as Dialga begins to charge up the Roar of Time to send our heroes back in time, Arceus attacks using Judgment. As one of the meteors heads straight for the kids, Giratina and Palkia use their powers to counter it, causing all four attacks to clash together. This creates multiple cracks in reality, distortions of time and space. This leaves all the humans stunned and speechless as the cracks begin to heal themselves, but not before Piplup begins to get lifted up. Dawn quickly grabs onto him, trying to stop him from being sucked up. Ash and Brock then quickly grab onto Dawn to make sure that she doesn't get taken. Unfortunately, while they're helping Dawn, no one is there to help Barry as he gets sucked into one of these cracks, which quickly reseals itself. This shock is enough for Ash and Brock to loosen their grips ever so slightly, that Dawn and Piplup get sucked into one of the distortions. Before they can even process just what happened, they get pulled into a third rift. What feels like mere moments later, they find themselves in an old looking town. Before they can even truly grasp the situation, a furious Garchomp and Lucario appear and start attacking them. In a panic, Ash sends out his Scyther and Gabite to try to stop them. However, the duo don't last long as they are sent flying out of town by an Orsphere and Dragon Pulse combo. Before our trio can even think of escaping, they are surrounded by a bunch of guards and a Heatran. Suddenly, two men appear, asking why is there such a commotion, and upon realizing that our heroes aren't from this land, Ash and Brock are hypnotized using a Bronzong, while Sheena isn't because of her claims of being from the future. This seems to intrigue the duo, introducing themselves as Marcus and Volo. Since they're friends of hers, Ash and Brock will only get thrown in prison, while Sheena is taken so they can hear her story. About an hour later, and we find our two heroes in prison talking with Damos about his backstory. This is when the guards show up with 3 new prisoners, 2 of which jump for joy upon seeing our heroes. At first, Ash and Brock don't seem to recognize them, however it's quickly revealed to be Dawn and Barry. When asked what happened to them, Dawn explains that it's been 2 years since they last saw each other. She only briefly states that she ended up on the other side of Sinnoh, or Hisui, where she met Professor Levinton. Thanks to him, she was able to join the Galaxy Team Survey Corps in Jubilife Village, where she had met Ray, the other prisoner with them, and while traveling she reunited with Barry. According to him, Barry was sent back a year before Dawn arrived. The young boy had found himself in the Alabaster Islands. Had it not been for his Pokemon and a traveling merchant, he may have not made it. Without a way to survive in this new world, he decided to join the Ginkgo Guild, which allowed him to get money and survive. Barry goes quiet for a moment before he quickly changes the subject to what happened after he reunited with Dawn. Meanwhile, far outside of town, Scyther and Gabite are deciding what to do. Gabite wants to go back and save his friends, but Scyther does not. It rather enjoys the wilds of this era. There's so many other stronger Pokemon he can fight here. Gabite tries to argue that they should go back. After all, Ash is in danger right now. Scyther scoffs that he could care less about him, and Gabite gets mad at this comment, asking why. Scyther explains that when he was caught, Ash didn't even battle him. He just threw a Pokeball at him. A trainer who isn't willing to defeat him is not someone he can respect. When asked why Scyther hasn't just left, after all he's had multiple opportunities when he was at Professor Oak's lab, the bug type just gets quiet and looks away. But regardless of what Scyther was gonna say, Gabite proclaims that he's gonna save them, and so he leaves heading back towards the town. The Scythe Pokemon spends several minutes trying to convince himself that he doesn't care about Gabite nor Ash. However, he eventually gives in, going off to find the dragon type, only to find him in the middle of a battle with an abnormally large Roserade. Scyther decides not to rush in and let Gabite fight his own battles. Scyther quickly notes that Gabite is purposely taking hits that he could easily dodge. It's made apparent to Scyther that Gabite is protecting a young Teddiursa. That's why he won't dodge. Scyther comments to himself that this is really dumb of Gabite before jumping into the fight. Using X-Scissor and a nearly perfected Draco Meteor, they're able to scare off the alpha Pokemon. After the battle, Gabite gives an affectionate nibble at Scyther's leg, clearly happy that he came to save them. The Teddiursa is cautious at first, however after seeing Gabite act all friendly to Scyther, she lets her guard down. Gabite goes on to say that while heading back to the town, he found his friend here being taken away by some other soldiers from that town. After escaping from the guards, they ran into a Roserade, and then he came to save them. Despite Scyther wanting to go back and return to his own time, Gabite instead wants to help the bear return to her family before going to help Ash. Something Scyther isn't too happy about as he just changed his mind, but he has to go with Gabite regardless. Eventually, after a couple hours of walking, she leads them to a field full of Teddiursas, Ursarinks, and a couple of Ursalunas. She's so thankful she takes them to the elder/leader of them to see if they can get some kind of reward. The bug type explains their situation to the elder Ursaluna, who can sympathize with them, as many of her own children have been taken from them, only to become slaves to those humans. Through some convincing, mainly from Gabite, Ursaluna decides to aid them in this little prison break of theirs. However, she states that both of them in their current state are far too weak to be much help. This mainly pisses off Scyther, as he is stronger than she thinks he is. However, in a battle with Ursaluna, he gets defeated rather quickly. The Elder Bear explains that there is a way for him to become stronger faster. She then has a younger Ursaluna go look for certain rock. A few hours later, Ash and Brock have been caught up and they learn that the Legends trio is here because they heard rumors that Volo had come here. That was before the guards suddenly arrested them for no reason. With that said and done, everybody begins to look for a way out. And Damos tells them not to worry as he has a friend who will help him. He then waits for Pichu to show up, but it never does. Just as he's about to give up hope, explosions can be heard going off all around them. According to guards that are running by, they put together that a bunch of Ursarinks are attacking the kingdom. Shortly after that, the wall in front of their cell explodes, and out of the dust steps out the Johto starters, Teddiursa, Gabite, and Kleavor, who quickly shreds through the prison bars, allowing everyone to escape. After that, Gabite awkwardly explains that Kleavor used to be Scyther, and thanks to Damos's ability to read the hearts of Pokemon, he is able to help put this together for Ash. Our group then splits into 3 smaller groups to try to stop Marcus and Volo. The first group is Dawn, Berry, Ray, Pichu, and Cyndaquil, while the second group is Ash, Kleavor, and Totodile. Our third group is Damos, Brock, Gabite, Teddiursa, and Chikorita. But regardless, Marcus betrays Sheena, and once Arceus is getting stuck in the silver water, Volo betrays Marcus by pushing the red-haired man into the pit. Volo demands for the creator to destroy this world and remake it. If not, the supposed god will die here today. And just as he finishes his sentence, Ash appears behind him, telling Volo to stop this and let Arceus go. Volo, in his crazed state, says that he might as well erase them now before Arceus gets the chance. Volo then sends in Arcanine, and after Ash nearly gets burnt, he is forced to battle by sending in his Swampert. Despite being at a massive type disadvantage, this Arcanine is so much stronger than Swampert. Not only that, but Volo is using some kind of fighting style that makes his Pokemon stronger and faster. Meanwhile, groups 1 and 3 are having trouble as a Heatran, Bronzong, and a Togekiss are preventing them from going anywhere. Over with Ash, we see that the Totodile that had been following him around has joined in the fight. While she isn't on Swampert's level, it always does help to have a second source of water there. Ultimately, Swampert's Torrent activates, allowing it to defeat the dog with a double Hydro Pump. Volo doesn't seem too concerned by this as he brings forth Roserade, who does a little pedal dance. That one hit KOs the Mudfish, and this is when Kleavor steps up wanting to prove itself. Ash of course lets him do this, and Kleavor ultimately ends up knocking out the flower Pokemon with the splinters from its Stone Axe move. Volo's third Pokemon is a Lucario, who defeats the Axe Pokemon with a Bullet Punch. Ash then sends in his Infernape, and while the Totodile wants to rejoin, having rested during Kleavor's fight, it's quickly made apparent that this is a fight she cannot keep up with. For Totodile, it's like watching a Dragon Ball fight, where she can only catch glimpses of what's going on. Because she can't keep up, Totodile decides to help in a different way, by using Hydro Pump to snipe the Jewel of Life out of Volo's hands. The Jewel then begins to fall, and it's up to Brock and Chikorita to save it. They pretty much play the part that Ash and Pikachu would've in returning the Jewel. Once Arceus has saved everyone, Volo lashes out, demanding to answer why it chose them over someone more worthy like him. Why won't he destroy the world to get rid of its sins? God just gives him a cold stare before both of them vanish. Eventually, time comes when Dialga has to bring them back to the present. Ray gives his goodbyes to both Dawn and Barry, while Teddy Ursa gives Kleavor and Gabite a saddened look as she doesn't want them to leave. Gabite tells her to take care of herself, while Kleavor tells her to get stronger, before everybody is teleported back to the present. Because of Arceus' attack, our heroes don't notice that they've picked up a few hitchhikers. Once Arceus comes to its senses and leaves, is when they notice that the Johto starters have teleported with them to the future. Although they want to leave them in Machina Town, the starters don't want to seem to stay, so they're gonna join our trio's teams. Dawn gets Cyndaquil, Ash gets Totodile, and Brock gets Chikorita. Shortly after this time-traveling adventure, Barry decides to go his own way, with our heroes noticing that Barry's personality has changed, having become slightly more serious and mature. While he is still hyperactive and impulsive, it's not to the same level that it used to be. Dawn even notes that in all their time traveling together, Barry has always remained very vague about what happened in that 1 year before they reunited. Whatever happened in that 1 year seems to have really changed him. Once they make it to a Pokemon Center, Dawn can finally show them everything that's different with her team. Tangrowth, Natu, Mamoswine, and Vespiquen have all learned new moves and are a lot stronger than they were before. The two biggest shocks are that Piplup and Baneri have evolved. She believes the harsh wilderness of Hisui made Piplup realize he needed to evolve in order to be strong enough to protect her. Then once again in their battle against a giant Avalugg, he evolved into an Empoleon. As for Baneri, she evolved during a battle with a Gudra inside a cavern. Anyways, now that she's back in the present, Dawn will continue and finish her journey with them. But before they leave, Dawn gets help from Professor Rowan so he can swap out the old Pokeballs for the new ones and send her a Pokedex, which will be waiting for her at Sunnyshore City. Upon leaving the Pokemon Center, Dawn tells Ash about a new way to fight that she learned about in Hisui. A way to make the moves of a Pokemon faster and stronger. And that's where we're going to be leaving things off for today. So the original plan for this part wasn't going to cover the Arceus movie all that much. I was just going to mention that it happened. But a few months ago, I finally did beat Legends Arceus. And I decided to write it in since the anime never really tackles Hisui or anything like that. The closest we get is that Arceus special that only has it for like 5 freaking minutes. So I had Dawn and Barry go off on the Legends adventure while Ash and Brock stay back for the movie. I don't know how people are gonna react to me evolving Piplup and Baneri the way I did, since my original plan was to have Piplup evolve between the periods of Diamond and Pearl and Black and White. But once again, I think that Legends was the perfect opportunity for me to do that, so that's why I did it here. Also, I did want to have Scyther evolve into Kleavor when Kleavor was first announced, so that's why I also had him take part in its own side adventure with Gabite. As for the Ash and Paul fight, I had it end like that for a specific reason that you'll see much later on. Anyways, I hope you guys did enjoy this part, and that's gonna be it for me. Remember to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.